that's covered in all of our videos, but it's going to be a little bit, you'll be able to stop me and ask questions, and it'll be a little bit more hands-on
okay.
For you. So, just as a brief overview of how I go about doing this, I'm going to create a project in Nullify.
Okay.
And I'll put together a project plan, make a contract, and kind of just take you through how the life of a project works in Nullify, so you can see how we track expenses, employee time, bills, and then eventually we'll do change orders and invoices, just so you can see our basics. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
So, just to start us off, what you're seeing here is Nullify's company dashboard. It's the most broad level you can check out what's happening in your Nullify account. It shows you the average profitability of your jobs. It'll show you how much unbilled value you have in all of your open contracts in Nullify. And then down here we see some management information just for what kind of open jobs we have and how many people we have scheduled to each of them.
Okay.
But the life of a Nullify project really starts in our contract jobs. This is where everything's going to live while it's active or bidding in Nullify, just so we can reference it at any time.
Okay.
All the other data that we're going to be inputting in our Nullify system is going to be pointing at one of these jobs to give us our cost revenue statement, and then obviously our profit and loss on it.
Okay.
Job. And so the first thing it's going to prompt me for is a QuickBooks account. It's going to sync in both directions with our clients. So we can add anyone new in your Nullify account, and it'll push it to QuickBooks.
Great.
And also, obviously, the second you set up your Nullify account, we'll pull all of your clients from QuickBooks.
Okay.
So you'll never have to double log any of that information.
Okay.
So I'm doing this for Smart Contracting, and I'm just going to call this 2 Wall Street. Our office's address. And then we can associate this job with an address. We can even reference Google Maps to bring that up. And it's going to bring up a job dashboard that'll give us a nice broad overview of everything that's going on in this job. And so the reason the address is going to be relevant is because we do offer the ability for people to use a mobile app to check in and check out to log their hours instead of putting a manual entry in on a desktop or even a manual entry on their phone that wouldn't show location and exact time.
Okay.
And so the process generally starts in our plan and track section, where we're going to put together a project plan broken down into materials and labor for each of our phases. And then if your clients are hiring any subcontractors, we can track their open contracts as well.
Okay.
But we have the option, I'm just going to show you how we do this so I don't bore you making the whole project plan. But we have the option to bring in an old project as a template. And this way we don't have to build from scratch every time. And it'll automatically bring in all the different phases that we're often using. And we can edit it from here just to make it a little bit more precise to the job that I'm planning. And so each of these phases, we can track our estimated cost by starting with either putting in an overall estimated cost, which is a little bit more raw. A lot of people like to do this just if they don't know what goes into all of their estimated materials budget. But I always think it's more powerful to reference our catalog in Nullify. And this is another place where we'll have a bidirectional sync with QuickBooks, where if you have a catalog of products and services in QuickBooks, we'll download it into your Nullify account, and that'll also sync in both directions, so you can make new catalog items in Nullify, and it'll create them in your QuickBooks account as well.
Right, so like when you say catalog, you mean products and services?
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, everything has a estimated cost to it, and I could say maybe I need some like cement and it automatically brings in a unit cost. This is an estimated cost just for the sake of putting together my project's budget.
Okay.
It won't actually come into play in my bills if I end up needing to pay for more than this value for all of my cement.
Okay.
And so I'll say something like 800 units of this, maybe I need some paint. I'm just putting in all kinds of crazy stuff here. I know. I'll bring in some primer. And so it automatically creates this materials budget for us. So when we're quoting our value to our client, the prices that we send to them can be as accurate as possible, and it helps you get a better idea of what's going on. Then we can start allocating our labor hours to this for our estimated labor costs by clicking Add Role/Resource. And our estimated labor costs come in from our laborers or all of our employees' wages that we put into Nullify. And what you can do is either say, I want Mark on this job. And it brings in Mark's hourly cost. And if he's a yearly paid employee, then we can create an hourly cost based off of what their yearly salary is. We account for benefits, workman's comp, any union wages. And it creates this hourly cost for us just so we can track how much we're technically spending every time he's on this project.
Okay.
But if we don't know he's available, I can just say, all right, I know I'm going to need a laborer. And then it brings in the hourly cost of, the average hourly cost of everyone in my system under the term laborer.
Okay.
And so if I need 2 guys working over the course of a week, I'll just say, 80 hours. And then maybe I want a construction manager in here. And I'll put in one for 10 hours. But if we want to track our labor a little bit more specifically than just whatever our phase is, we can also divide all of our phases into tasks. And so we can track all of these hours a little bit more specifically, and it provides some more powerful job costing for us, because if this task ends up running beyond schedule, or if it costs us a little bit more than we're budgeted, then we can track it all the way down to this level and know exactly what's taking so long.
Got it.
We can also track subcontractor work by just saying, rather than breaking it down into labor, material, tasks, we can just say whatever their work is. And then we can write in, we're estimating that it'll cost us $9,000 to hire whoever we end up hiring.
Okay.
And so this creates an estimated budget for us that we can see at the top of the screen here. And as we actually spend money on this project, it will track it in each of these phases, and it'll show us our actual costs next to our estimated to give us a better idea of what may be causing us to go over or under budget. And so I'll come to my create bid/contract section, and we have 4 different types of contract that we can put together in Nullify. We have a standard owner contract, which is when we'll make all of those phases you saw in the previous screen as fixed price line items. So it'll just be one contract based off of all your different deliverables, and we'll bill as percentage of completion of each of them. Our GC bid is for commercial or commercial subcontractors who may be doing work under a GC or a government job, and they need to use AIA style invoicing.
Okay.
And then our estimate and service agreement contracts are going to be for more custom types of billing, such as like a time and materials contract, where we'll allow you to create a applicable or a billable rate for each of your different workers, and we'll also let you put a markup percentage on your materials. So as you purchase against this contract, the invoiceable value will go up each day. Well, I'm going to go forward with our owner contract. It's our pretty standard form of invoicing and kind of Nullify's bread and butter. So I'll show you how that works first. And so we can write in a start date. We can throw in an estimated end date for this work, assign a contract ID. We can request a deposit. And then we're also going to be able to put in our markup rates as percentages. And so I can just write these in, and it automatically creates a price that'll show up on my contract.
Got it. Nice.
I'm just going to do 30% across the board. And we can also add additional comments to each of these phases. So when we print out our contract, it'll come out in with a little bit more of a description. It won't be so vague.
Okay.
And we can write in if these are taxable items. We can write in our tax rate, and it's going to add it to our contract sum at the end of the day.
Okay.
And then we can also add additional line items to be billed for. And so this will allow us to have just some extra revenue at the end of the project. I like to put in some contingency just in case we need to collect a little bit extra at the end. And then when we write in our terms and conditions, it's going to save across our project, so we don't need to write these every time.
Okay.
Just whenever we make a new contract, it'll start them in here default, and you can edit them if necessary.
Okay.
And so all of this input is going to work towards putting together a contract for us here that's going to be auto-populated by the information that we put together in this section. We do offer custom templating, so if your clients have a special style of contract that they like to send out, they can send us a copy of it, and we're happy to recreate it and apply it to their account so they can use Nullify to make the same contracts that they currently make now.
Nice. So if they have a font that they want to use or a certain header that they want to put on.
Exactly. Whatever it may be, then we're happy to work with them.
Is there an additional cost for that?
There is not.
Okay, awesome.
And then we can also send out contracts for an e-signature, so we can go paperless. And I'm going to play client just so you can see what it looks like on their end. And so it's going to send them a copy of the contract, whatever they choose for it to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And the client is going to get an email. It'll have the company's name. It'll bring a PDF of the contract. And then the link will let them come into to the contract in Nullify. They don't need a Nullify account to see this. It'll just put it together for the sake of, it'll just bring them into Nullify for the sake of seeing the contract and signing the signature.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they accept this, our contract in Nullify, let's see if I can find, which is currently out for signature, is going to automatically switch to active as soon as this goes through.
Okay.
And so once we have an active contract in Nullify, we can start scheduling our workers on it and going through our cost tracking our cost tracking process.
Okay.
So I'll enable scheduling, and this will let us set some dates. These are previous dates, but I guess this also shows that you can backlog information in Nullify as well if necessary. A lot of people like to pick up current projects in Nullify and kind of move forward from that point. So we can recreate what they have as archive data and just keep moving forward from there. And so setting these dates is going to allow us to control when workers can access each of these phases from their mobile app or from desktop, so they'll know what job they're supposed to be doing each day. And so this is also when we're going to start scheduling our actual workers. So I remember I scheduled just some labor on this, but I didn't know who was available.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going to let me bring in the actual workers now. I'll say, I want Mark to be on this project for 40 hours. But if I don't know he's available, I can come out of my contract jobs and into my resource scheduler. And I can see, oh, Mark's actually super booked up. And I can remove him from different jobs and reallocate all of his time so he can be available for whatever job I need him for.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'll put John on this as well. And so we can also order materials through Nullify by coming to our estimated material budget here. I can see how many of each of these I originally had estimated versus how many I've ordered. I'll click not ordered. I'll say, all right, I want to order anything wood related right now. So the nails I'll get from a different vendor. When I hit start PO process, it takes me out of my contract jobs and immediately into my purchases with the correct items and quantities already filled in on this purchase order. I'll grab a vendor, and my vendors are another place where I'll have a bi-directional sync with QuickBooks. We will pull in all of your QuickBooks vendors, and then any new ones you add in Nullify, we'll push them back to your QuickBooks as well.
Okay.
I can change values. So say I estimated more than I knew I would need, just in case I needed a little bit of extra at the end. And so I'll just order this much so far. I'll add an estimated tax rate. I can write in shipping if it's going directly to the job site. And you see it's automatically pointing this expense not only at the relevant client and job, but the specific phase of the job, so I can tell exactly where this cost is going.
Got it.
And then furthermore, I can also write in how I'm paying for this. Maybe it's a guy in the field who just has cash and he's paying for it. He'll bring back the receipt. If you pay with a credit card, we can set it up so you pay the bill to the credit card company instead of the vendor. Or I'm just going to do it as if it's a vendor invoice, and I'll show you how we can pay a bill through Knowify as well. And so this is going to automatically create a contract for us. We can put in our shipping information. We can add extra information. So I could say deliver before 9 a.m. We can hide prices if we're getting a quote from the vendor instead of directly purchasing things. And then we can also email it directly to our vendor and CC extra people if we want other people to know what to expect on the site.
Okay, nice. Now, does this PO copy over to QuickBooks so you can see it from inside QuickBooks as well?
Right now, our purchase order management is all done in Nullify.
Okay.
We're working on setting it up so we can sync with QuickBooks, and we'll also have the ability then to pull information into Nullify from QuickBooks, so we can work with softwares like Receipt Bank that will pull your expenses into Nullify, probably more specifically into the bill section, but it is something that is shortly on the way.
Does this create a bill to the vendor?
We can create a bill, but all this will do is create a purchase order for you to reference when you're making the bills that you're going to be paying to the vendor.
So it's kind of just a separate process.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you won't need to double log the information unless it's super important to you to have your purchase orders in QuickBooks. But since they're all managed and filed in Nullify in our cloud-based servers, there's really no need to have them on both ends.
So how does it affect the AP?
How do you mean? So when it won't actually show up in your accounts payable until we create the bill for this purchase order.
Okay.
And that way, if the amounts don't reconcile, if your estimated tax rate was wrong, or if the price has changed on any of these items, you'll be able to reconcile the actual amount in the bills, and we'll change the price that's allocated to your project.
So that's just a step you haven't shown me yet.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Sorry to jump the gun.
No problem. I'm happy you're asking questions of things we could do. So what this is going to do, so I have my open purchase order now. I also have the ability to mark down when these items are received. And it's going to highlight the clipboard if anything's outstanding. So whoever is supposed to be watching for these supplies can keep note of that.
Okay.
Once everything's on site, it'll close that out. And so this is when we're going to create the bill and push it to your accounts payable. And so I see I have purchase order 133 here. I'll go to my bills and add a new one. If I have a digital copy of the bill or a receipt or something that I scanned in, I can upload it and it'll be hosted in our servers with this bill, so you can always bring it up for reference.
Nice. Okay.
And so I'll say purchase order 133, and it automatically brings in my vendor. And again, of course, this vendor is pointing at your supplier in QuickBooks, and so it knows who to apply this expense to. I can reconcile whatever the total amount is. I'll write in some additional information, like when I receive the invoice, when they expect payment. If they assigned an invoice number, I can put that in too. And I can create a bill like this. But also, if you're going to be paying for more than one purchase order at a time through Nullify, or if you're paying a bill for something that you never created a purchase order for, we can come here and just write in the name of the supplier. And it's going to show you everything that you have outstanding with this specific company.
Great. Okay.
And you can choose exactly which items you want to be paying for at this point.
Perfect.
And so what happens here when I create this, and I unfortunately think this with a QuickBooks account that's no longer active, so I can't show it to you on the QuickBooks side.
Oh,
but at another time, if you'd like to see that, I can obviously show you that as well.
I would have liked to see that because I'm actually coming to this from the QuickBooks side.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I can show you this at another time. I'll also send you a video that has a demonstration of how we integrate with QuickBooks, just so you can see it there as well. And so what this does is it creates a outstanding bill in QuickBooks for ABC Supply. It'll bring in your relevant invoice number so you can see which ones are linked up. But also, once it's created in QuickBooks from Nullify, they'll be synced up in both directions and be talking back and forth with each other, so you can edit either of them, and it's going to let the other side know.
Cool.
And so when I record my payment, I can either do it in QuickBooks or in Nullify, and the other side is going to reconcile the value.
Awesome.
And then if it's being paid with a QuickBooks check, we can push that information into QuickBooks. So all you have to do on the QuickBooks side is click Write Check, and it'll do it for you. Or if you've already recorded it in QuickBooks and it just hasn't synced up with Nullify yet, we can just check this off and prevent it from pushing the data twice. And so that's how we'll handle our basic bills for purchase orders through Nullify. We do the same thing for our subcontractor management. So let me see that project if I can find it again. So instead of creating a purchase order through our purchases module, I'll come down, I'll select a subcontractor, and this is another place. It's just going to reference your vendors in QuickBooks. I'll say James Contractors is going to do this. They quoted a grand total value of $15,000, and I can upload their contract here so I have it on file with their open contract. And it's going to create another purchase order number. Obviously, it's not a technical purchase order since you're not buying materials or anything, but now we can reference this whenever we need to make a bill to pay for Jane's work.
Okay.
And so I can see here it's our original contract was PO 134 for $15,000, but let's just say hypothetically they submitted a change order and requested more money. We can also add to this value, and it won't even have to make a new contract. It'll just add to the additional value here. So let's say it's for $500. We can upload their document requesting the change order. And now PO 134 has increased by $500, and we can reconcile that in our bills. And so I'll leave my jobs again and come into my bills, and I'll add a bill for 134. It'll bring in Jane's Contractors. And I could write in just however much I'm paying her for at this point, maybe just $10,000 on this invoice she sent me. And I can reconcile how much I want to take out of the contract, $10,000. I can write in the invoice date, all the same stuff from our purchase orders. And it'll work the same way, where it'll send to QuickBooks, and we'll have all that data synced in both ends.
Got it.
We can also track employee time through Nullify by coming to our time tracker. I could say, I want to enter time for Dan DeRoulet. I didn't have him scheduled on the correct dates, but even if he's not scheduled on this project for these dates, if he's still going to work on that project, I can hit add new activity, and I could say it's for. I can bring in the job he's going to be working on. I probably should stop naming these things to Wall Street at some point.
Yeah.
It's making it real tough on myself. Well, one of these two Wall Streets. My point being, he can just point himself to. Here we are. Oh no, that's another one. Well, either way, he can just input his time manually based off of whatever job he's working on at any point by saying, I'm working today on whatever job it may be. Now I'm determined. And he can log in his hours. Now, like I said, this is also available on our mobile application, and we do that by having people check in and check out when they get to site.
Right.
And whenever they check in or check out, it'll send a geolocation so you can make sure that your workers aren't trying to check in at a place around the corner.
Okay.
We also have the ability to have people log time for other people in our foreman's view, also available as a mobile check-in, check-out, where people can write in their hours and just say, I was here for 2 hours, Fred was here for 8 hours.
Now, do you have to be designated as a foreman to put in each other's hours, or can anybody add anybody?
You would give certain people abilities to be foremen. Okay. So if someone, when you set up someone's account in Nullify, you set up different permissions for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone has the ability to log time for other people, that makes them access the foreman view.
Okay.
And so it pushes these hours to our review time section. So if any of your clients use QuickBooks Online's payroll functions, we can review and push their time to the corresponding employee in QuickBooks.
Oh, good.
So we don't need to double log any of their information.
Okay. Now I noticed that you have that's awesome. I noticed that you have billable check marks there. That's to make it billable to the customer, right?
Correct.
Which most of the time we would not do because we're just billing for hours, or are we just pushing the actual times? I guess in this case we're pushing the actual
I should explain this one a little bit better. We're actually going to be removing that soon. The reason we have that checked off, it's technically saying that you're going to be allocating this cost to a job.
Right.
The reason we had it as an option is in case people wanted to do work for maybe a time and materials job but not bill it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the smallest number of cases, and we're not going to have this be an option for non-time and materials jobs anymore.
Okay.
So it says billable, but it's really just for the sake of cost tracking.
Okay.
And so this is going to push their hours to QuickBooks if they use QuickBooks Online Payroll. We can also edit people's hours and say, I know it says 8 here, but he really worked 7 hours. He really dilly-dallied too much. We're not giving him the full amount.
Okay.
We can also repoint employee time if we have to by going into each of our jobs and repurposing wherever these hours went in case they were part of the wrong job. And so all these hours are going to be tracked to whatever the relevant job was, and we can come back to our contract jobs. And if I can even find that job again. It's going to show us how much we've spent in total. It'll break it down into materials, labor, and subs for us. My labor is low since I pointed those in the wrong direction. But then when we have view current costs, we can see our actual versus our estimated for every different stage of this project.
Wait, slow down and show me that.
Sorry. So these different values you see on the right are all just actual over estimated.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And so I meant to actually log these guys' times, but I was struggling a little bit too hard to find their actual projects since I have like 10 jobs named to Wall Street. And obviously it shows you the same for your subcontractor value and all this information. You can come in and reference what purchase order this contract is open for. Up here we can see what purchase order we got these materials in. We can see how many we ordered versus how many we budgeted. It'll also let us reference the if the items were received or not yet. And it just gives us a nice broad overview of what's going on in each of these phases. Now we can come to our contract and change orders. And this is going to allow us to add billable items to this project. So I could say add change order, call it change number 1 for $500. I could say requested by James Contractors. I could send this out for an e-signature too, the same way I did with my initial contract. Since you already saw that, I'm just going to make it active. And once this is active, it'll show up in my invoices module as invoiceable revenue. So I'll click invoice now. And what it's going to do is bring in all of my different promised deliverables. And I can write in what percentage I'd like to bill for. I can set one percentage value to all of these. Or I can switch to dollar values and write that in instead. I personally like percentages because I find that they always end up breaking off a little bit more clean, a little bit cleaner. Let's say, James Contractors is 75% done with their work. We started this. And then we can bring in tax rates. We can write in a header and a bottom comment. We'll pull our tax rates from QuickBooks. Let's say I'm not taxing for charging tax for the subcontractor's work. And then we'll send an email to our client with the document. And just like our bills, we'll send this invoice into QuickBooks with a corresponding, it'll have a corresponding link between the two invoices and obviously reconcile with the correct client. I can email this directly to that client.
So this really solves the problem of the fact that there's no either change orders or progress billing in QBO.
Exactly, and so there's really no other way to do very much job costing in QBO, and it seems like everyone's found like different kinds of crazy workarounds.
Right.
But now you don't have to do any workarounds. You have just Nullify to do all the work for you, and then all the accounting data is pushed to QuickBooks just to keep everything sorted and a little bit cleaner on that end.
Okay, now going back, you said in the beginning that estimates get pushed to QuickBooks, right? Or they don't?
No, your estimates don't get pushed to QuickBooks.
Okay, so we don't have the problem of closed estimates for incomplete work.
Exactly. All of that's going to be tracked in
here instead.
All of that's going to be tracked in your Nullify account.
Okay. Good.
And so we also, just like we do with our proposals, will compile a document for you for your invoices. And just like with our proposals, we're happy to do custom templating for you because I know most people have their own style that they like to send out to their clients, and their clients expect to see it from them. And so we're happy to recreate them. We just need one to use as a guide, and we'll build it for you.
Okay.
And so this will then allocate the cost to that or the revenue to that job. And if I can find it in here. Sometimes it takes a couple seconds for all the data to load, especially since I run through this so fast. but that's how we then create our profit and loss statement for this job.
Okay. But then all of this goes over to QuickBooks to run a proper P&L.
Exactly. And so all of your bills, all of your invoices are all going to be created in QuickBooks, and they'll correspond to the correct clients and vendors since we have all of that information synced up in Nullify.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously you'll need to reference your Nullify account for any of your job management information. But on the accounting side, it'll be broken down as easily as you owe this guy this much money, this guy owes you this much money.
Okay. Cool. Okay. What's the documents and RFIs?
So our documents and RFIs section is basically open cloud-based storage for you to keep on every project. We automatically will generate some stuff for you, like your open contract will always be here. And we can even make it shareable on mobile, so people can even reference it on their smartphone.
Oh, okay. Does it have any kind of? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to ask, is there any kind of client portal so that the clients can see the documents?
Not yet. That'll probably come when we start doing some major integration work. Right now, we only are integrating with QuickBooks Online, and so we have a couple of workarounds for people who use different softwares like Bills.com that sync with QuickBooks, and obviously we can then, if it's syncing with information in QuickBooks, we can pull it from QuickBooks to Knowify. But I think sometime in the middle of next year is going to be where we start aggressively integrating directly with other companies for client-facing information and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, because like I have one client, and another question. I have a client who wants to keep his blueprints with the jobs. This is what they would use for that?
So if they have the blueprints, first of all, I should say, we can keep any type of file in here. It's very raw storage, and we're even considering syncing it up with a Dropbox for that type of storage as well, a little bit more organization. We kindly request that people only put in small files like PDFs, JPEGs, that type of stuff, because since we don't charge extra for this storage, it ends up costing us a lot if people are uploading large CAD files.
Right.
So our request is that people only use it for PDF versions of their blueprints. They can still keep all their blueprints in this section for the sake of storing it on the cloud. But as I said, CAD files can get a little bit big.
Okay.
And then this section is also handy because our mobile application has the ability to submit comments from the field, and you'll see that every phase and labor task is marked with one of these little speech bubbles where you can have communication to and from the field in Nullify. And then if there's an issue that you need to submit a picture with, you can submit the comment here, and the picture is going to stay in documents and RFIs, so you can access it anywhere.
I mean, does it tell you in the job that there's a picture waiting over here?
It will give you a little badge next to the speech bubble, so you can see that there's something going on there.
Okay. And there's a progress bar. Okay.
And then we also print out a variety of reports. This report here is just going to be an overall actual versus estimated cost report. It'll come out in a PDF. It gives you your progress based off of how much you've spent, your actual versus your estimated. And it'll show you a little bit more about who's been entering time on this project, what materials you've ordered. It's going to be a very broad view of what's happening here on your expenses. But we also have reports for your for all of your jobs where we could say, show me everything that's happened since the middle of last month, and it's going to create an Excel sheet that'll have all of your jobs in it, and it'll give you a P&L statement and break down all of your costs and revenues in that job. And we find that a lot of times accountants like that we can create this for you because they like to build these Excel sheets for themselves, and this way it skips a step for them.
Budgeted remaining, nice, okay.
And I also should say, as far as our reports go, we also, for people who have third-party payroll companies doing their payroll for them, we can output custom Excel sheets for their payroll reports in whatever format their company needs. So they don't need to, you don't need to use QuickBooks Payroll. That's just an extra feature that we have offered.
Okay. Okay, and so you said that there is well, I guess it doesn't need we don't need a P&L because we can get that out of QuickBooks. Which versions of QuickBooks does this sync with?
Right now, we're only syncing with QuickBooks Online, but we expect to have our desktop connection up and running by the end of the calendar year.
Okay. QuickBooks for Mac?
Yes, I believe so.
Really? Wow. Okay. Cool.
And I should mention off of that comment, we generally recommend that you use Chrome, Firefox, or Safari when you're using Knowify. For some reason, Internet Explorer has been struggling to save any information you log, so people should avoid trying to use Knowify through IE.
Cool. Okay. Excellent. What is my tasks?
Tasks are going to be, rather than specific jobs, it'll show you all of your open phases and then tasks within the phase. My tasks is just ones that you're scheduled to, so whoever's logged in at the moment. And so these are all service tickets that I set up for this Terran Callion account. And I can also go to contract jobs and see everyone's open tasks at any point in time.
Okay.
We can manage them by saying, switch this to active, and it'll go into that job and make it active for the person to check in and mark as completed when the time comes. We can also change different priorities to each of these so we know what should be completed when. So yeah, that's really that's the basics, just to give you a good idea of everything we do.
Okay.
And so I'll give you the rundown of what we generally do from here on out.
Okay.
We already got you a code so you can be a reseller, correct?
Yes.
And so, especially since you are specializing in training people in the use of these softwares, we'd be happy to work with you to make you an expert in Nullify, so you can kind of be a resource for any of your clients who are learning QuickBooks Online from you. You could say, oh, we also have Nullify. I can show you how to use that, and it'll help you get clients in construction and job costing type of industries. And then obviously we'll be a resource for you to help them out as well.
Okay, excellent. That sounds awesome.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a link right after this call to start your own Nullify account.
Okay.
And since you're going to be, we don't have a technical term for it in Nullify yet, but the equivalent of a pro advisor. You're going to have your own free account for you to mess around with all you want.
Great.
You're going to be signing up as if you're doing a 30-day free trial. But as your trial comes to a close, just shoot us an email and we'll activate it automatically for you.
Okay.
And I'll also send a whole bunch of information that'll help you get started with your account. We have this hour-long training video that we put an index in the front of, so you don't have to sit down and watch an hour worth of us rambling at you on YouTube just to learn how to do small things.
Okay.
And it's really a great resource just for learning how to set up an account, how to use our basic ins and outs. And then since you'll be in our YouTube channel, you'll see we have a whole library full of different tutorials that cover how to do more specific types of invoicing, billing, whatever you need to know how to do. We do it all in the video.
Cool. Okay. Excellent.
And then obviously we have our customer support team where you can contact me directly, or you can always email us at support@nullify.com.
Okay.
And we're happy to set up training sessions just like this, where we show you how to do whatever you're trying to learn how to do.
So for specific subsections. Great.
Exactly. And if you want to do another broad overview, we can do it again. The difference between our general training sessions and this first one that we do is I'll turn the screen around so we can see your screen, and you can say, all right, now how do I submit a credit card bill? And I can show you how to do that. And, you know, it's better if you steer because it'll help you create a little bit more muscle memory to each of these different functions.
Exactly. That's the way I like to train.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, excellent. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get me set up. I know that I have one client already, I think already underway with you, and I have 2 more in mind.
All right, excellent. That's what I like to hear. And if you'd like to set up a demonstration so I can run through this with them on the call and video as well, I'm happy to do this.
I did just record this. Is it okay if I share this with my clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And we also have one that's a 17-minute, just like real quick tutorial, so they can just jump in and see it, so they don't have to commit however long this session was. I think it's 45 minutes.
Right.
They can just do a quick overview and be like, this seems interesting, and then we'll bring them in for a full-length tutorial.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, and so I'll send you that email. You can feel free to get started with your account at any time. And as I said, just let us know when it's expiring, and we'll activate it for you. And I'll have a handful of different videos that'll have a label on them so you can see what they are. They'll have our tutorials, a demonstration of our mobile app, our QBO sync, all of that good stuff. And if you have any other questions, just feel free to shoot an email at me, and I'm happy to answer it for you.
All right, sounds great. Thanks so much.
Thanks for your time.
All right, yeah, thank you.
I'm going.
Okay, yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.